أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا ابن رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا أبا عبد الله يا مظلوم يا غريب كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. زينب عليها السلام Zainab watches the battlefield. She watches on as they surround her brother Hussain. She watches him on the ground. She sees he can't move. She watches as they begin to take off his armor. She watches as they take off his shoes. She watches a man cut the finger of Abu Abdullah. She watches as Shimr sat on the chest. She watches as the sword lay on the neck. She saw them place the head on the spear, the head of Abu Abdullah on a spear. And then she saw Shimr pointing towards her, calling the other soldiers to attack the tent. And she saw the children begin to run from tent to tent as the enemy soldiers ran through the tents of the women of Rasulullah. The women of Rasulullah without any protectors. The women of Haydar al-Karrar without any protectors. The men began to gather the women, to shackle them and strike them. As Zainab tries to protect the children, a man comes from forward the tents, and he strikes Zainab on her blessed face, and she falls to the ground. And Sukaina runs away, but the man chases her. Sukaina screaming, Baba! The man grabs her earrings, he pulls them from her ears, and her ears begin to bleed. Baba, where are you? Shimr begins to gather the women in shackles. The children are crying and screaming. Amma Abbas, Ya Abu Father, where are you? Do you see what they're doing to your daughters, to your woman? Ya Abu Father, what would you have done had you seen men surrounding Zainab, striking her? They gathered the woman and the night time came. They shackled them. Zainab is forced to sit down right in front of the spear with the head of Abu Abdullah upon it. She begins to talk to her brother. Habibi ya Hussain, how am I looking upon your head right now? How is your body behind us? How is your head in front of me? She then sees a distant figure coming closer, and his face is covered. And she takes a broken arrow from her side and keeps it close to her. As the figure approaches, she tells the figure to stay back. And the man removes the covering from his face. And he says, Zainab, it's me, your father, Ali. Speak to me. Zainab is in a trance, seeing a vision of her father. She says, Abata, why do you come now? We needed you before. Father, we needed you when they cut the arms of Abbas. Father, why didn't you come when they sat on the chest of Hussain? Father, why didn't you come when they struck me on my face? Do you see the face of your Zainab? The bruised and bloodied face. They take the women and children towards Kufa. Sayyidah Zainab, in the city of her father, the last time she was in this city, she was respected as the daughter of the Khalifa. Now she is brought into the city as a prisoner, marched in the streets. They march her through Kufa. Ubaydullah bin Ziyad watches the prisoners in the palace. He says, how do you find how Allah has killed your brother? She says, Wallah ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty and the sacrifice of Abu Abdullah. The people begin to cry in Kufa. She says, why do you cry after you left Abu Abdullah alone? You called him here and you left him to die. The people began to cry louder. Ubaydullah ordered for the caravan to be taken to Sham. When Imam al-Sajjad is asked what was the most difficult event in Karbala, He says the most difficult event was not in Karbala. He says it was Sham, Sham, Sham. March through the people, see the daughters of Rasulullah as they tried to humiliate the family of Imam Ali. Yazid sits upon his throne, looks down at Zainab and Sajjad. Then he takes the head of Abu Abdullah in front of them and he pokes a stick towards the lips of Imam al-Hussain. When Zainab says to stop, he strikes Zainab. He strikes Zainab. And the man says to Yazid, stop striking her. As soon as you struck her, the eyes on the head began to move. With your eyes, Abu Abdullah, you want to protect Zainab. He says, my grandfathers from Bani Umayyah, I wish you were here to see the day I finally sought revenge upon the Banu Hashim. Zainab begins to eloquently defend the family of Rasulullah until Imam Zainul Abidin stepped forth and he began to remind the people of who they were. I am the son of Makke and Mina. I am the son of Zamzam wa Safa. I am the son of Isra and Mi'raj. I am the son of Rasulullah. The son of Rasulullah lives on. The people once again begin to cry. Yazid has a hard time. He tells the mu'adhin to recite the adhan so people can forget about what's happening. When the mu'adhin writes out, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he says, that's true, Muhammad Rasulullah. Is he my grandfather or your grandfather? Yazid orders for the prisoners to be taken to the dungeons. The dungeons were cold, and the sun would blast from morning till sunset. It said the skin on Sajjad would peel from the sun, and there was no shade in the dungeon. The nights were cold and the days were hot, and the women and children of Rasulullah remained in the cell. But every day and every night, Sukaina wept. Sukaina wept and wept and wept until the gods had enough of her weeping. She would constantly wake up and say, I saw my father in a dream. I keep seeing my father in a dream. But in my dream, I keep trying to ask him a question and he doesn't answer me. I keep trying to tell him, did Asghar drink? I miss Asghar. Did he drink water, Father, when you took him from the tent? You took him and you didn't bring him back. Where is Asghar? The gods had enough. So Yazid ordered for them to take the head of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, to take it to the dungeon, to bring the blessed head to the daughter of Imam al-Hussain, to show her the head in the dungeon. They came towards the sun. In the dark prison, they sat heads bowed. Frightened of the darkness, Sukaina looked around. Why is it so dark? Sukaina wanted to know. What place is this, mother, where no air flows? My father would cradle me on his chest at night. Now I sleep on the dirt, how will I last? They put the head into the cell for Sukaina to receive it. To receive her father, Sukaina held out her small dress and hugged his head close to her chest. She kissed his forehead, his lips and his cheeks. To be reunited with her father, Sukaina seeks. Unconscious, she fell close to her death. She sighed, shuddered, and took her last breath. She held the head close before her last breath. All she would say is, Abato. What did they do to you, Baba? She laid down with the chest in her arms, and she stopped moving. And her brother Sajjad called her, Sukaina, and she didn't reply. He put his hand on her shoulder and moved her, Sukaina. She didn't reply. He held her head and saw she had stopped breathing. She stopped breathing with the head of Abu Abdullah in her arms. Sajjad began to cry, Sukaina, oh beloved of her father. The orphan child died of a broken heart. The women and children would wail. Soon enough, as news broke out of the death of Sukaina, and as people's hearts began to change, Yazid ordered for the exile of the family of Rasulullah. They were taken away from Sham and brought to Medina. When they were brought to Medina, they came forward with a poet. He went to Medina before them to tell the people of the tragedies of Karbala. He began to recite, and the people in Medina crowded around him. And a woman saw from a distance. So she came towards the crowd and she saw the poet. And she waited for the family of Rasulullah to return. But before they did, she wanted to know from the poet what had happened. She says, "Oh man, tell me what happened to my son Hussain." The man looked bewildered. They told him, "This is Lady Bani, the mother of Abbas." The man's complexion changed. He said, "Ya Amatullah, I give you my condolences for the death of your son Abdullah." She said, "I did not ask about Abdullah. I only asked about Hussain." He replied, "My condolences for the death of your son Jafar." She said, "I did not ask you about Jafar. I only asked you about Hussain." He said, "My condolences on the death of your son Uthman." She said, "I did not ask you about Uthman. I only asked you about Hussain." He said, "My condolences on the death of your son Abbas." She said, "You've cut my heart into pieces. I didn't ask about Abbas. Don't tell me about Abbas. Tell me about Hussain." He replied, "قتل الحسين بكربلاء عطشانا." Hussain was killed in Karbala thirsty, without any helpers. His grey beard drenched in red blood. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya came forth to receive the caravan. He saw his nephew Imam al-Sajjad and ran to him. Muhammad, the brother of Imam al-Hussain, he hugged his nephew Imam al-Sajjad. And then he saw a strange woman behind Imam al-Sajjad. But she was so close to them, so he was wondering why. He said, "Ya Sajjad, who is this lady you brought with you?" So Sajjad turned around and said, "Auntie, tell him who you are." She said, "My brother Muhammad, I don't blame you for not recognizing me. I am Zainab, but Karbala changed me, brother. Karbala changed me. I went with my Hussain and Abbas, and I came back even without Sukaina." Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa la'natullah ala al-zalimin. إلى يوم القيامة.